This is HBR News number 425. Pink doesn't want to hear about MGM. Lawrence Fox canceled. UN women are cringe. Where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everybody and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian and I hope you guys are doing well this morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it may be. I am joined by, as always, my lovely and intellectually robust co-hosts, Mike J, Dr. Randerbergham, and Hannah Wallen. We have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comments section after this video. On today's show, it's going to be like fewer stories, but one of them is probably going to be, at least one, is going to be worthy of some robust discussion. We're going to be talking about the passing of Senator Dianne Feinstein, I think. Pink, the singer that was popular in the 90s, kicks an intactivist out of her concert. Lawrence Fox's comments put him in hot water, along with Calvin Robinson for some reason, and more. So stick around, it's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. There is I don't know that it's confirmed, so I didn't pick it as a main topic, but we can probably talk about it a little bit. And this is the story that I was interested in was about this, what is it? Like a correspondent journalist for the Ukraine folks, named Sarah Ashton Cirillo. And well, I thought we would just discuss it. I think it's kind of interesting as a subject because I have this feeling that a lot of members of the
spokesperson for Ukraine's territorial defense forces.
Yes, spokesperson for Ukraine's territorial. You've probably seen the videos. You've probably seen them because they've been making the rounds. And this person was who reported on at least the first I heard of it. The Gonzalo Lira's arrest when he was trying to flee into Hungary, right? This person was who reported on it. And there's been some stuff about them. Apparently they claimed that another video they made was a deep fake or something. So it could be a fun rabbit hole to sort of look down on. I don't know how much of this is true. This is why I'm not making it a story, but still big if true. And I guess we'll explore that in the patron show. So if you want to join us in the patron show to talk about this story, then you have to become a Badger by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, and if you give it higher levels, you'll be able to participate in the discussions, within the actual live chat with us. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we have been yeeted from the internet, at least the mainstream part of it, then go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com to find all of our archives. And shout out to the Rumble gang. Please, if you guys haven't already, subscribe and follow us on Rumble, HB Radio, all one word on Rumble. Because Rumble is based, at least right now, and they seem to be one of very, very few tech platforms that are not taking shit from gigantic, governments and corporations, i.e. fascist organizations. And I know that word is overused, but it actually applies in this case. So,
well, shout out to BitChute and Odyssey and Minds,
yes,
who just aren't getting the shit that Rumble is getting.
That's true. That's true.
The powers that be don't seem to care about it. This goes to show you that Rumble is making some dents in the mainstream media, and we can now refer to YouTube as the mainstream media because it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely, bought and paid for. Okay, so with that out of the way, let us get into today's stories. First, a small one, although I'm pretty sure that Hannah will have some things to say about this. Dianne Feinstein. So Dianne Feinstein, the senior U.S. Senator from California, passed away this past Thursday night. U.S. President Joe Biden released a statement saying, quote, "She's made history in so many ways, and our country will benefit from her legacy for generations. Dianne was tough, sharp, always prepared, and never pulled a punch, but she was also a kind and loyal friend, and that's what Jill and I will miss the most," end quote. Feinstein had faced increasing calls to step down due to her fragile health and decaying mental faculties. Feinstein had voted in the U.S. Senate as recently as Wednesday. In terms of political positions, Feinstein was a supporter of so-called abortion rights and called for congressional action after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. She supported lifting the filibuster to allow the passage of such legislation. Feinstein also supported strong gun control laws. From Kathy Spillar, executive editor of Ms. Magazine, Spillar said that Senator Feinstein was deeply dedicated to protecting abortion rights, arguing in her 1992 Senate campaign that Congress should immediately ratify Roe v. Wade given the looming threats of an increasingly conservative Supreme Court. She partnered with us in the fight to defend clinics from anti-abortion extremists' harassment, joining the front lines of clinic defenders, standing shoulder to shoulder with us in front of a Southern California clinic, boldly declaring, "This clinic will stay open." Senator Dianne Feinstein's enduring commitment to the feminist movement has forever left a mark on the political landscape, paving the way for future generations of women in public service, end quote. Shortly after Feinstein's passing, California Governor Gavin Newsom took a plea from Joe Biden and vowed to appoint a black woman to fill Feinstein's seat. Okay, Newsom fulfilled on that promise, appointing LaFonza, this is not made up, this is a real name, LaFonza Butler, the current president of Emily's List, a PAC dedicated to elect female Democrats that are in favor of abortion rights. So a robot. Newsom came under fire for her appointment, given that Butler's currently registered to vote and lives in Maryland. He promised that she would be changing her address to her house in California and register to vote in California.
It's pretty. I'll let Hannah get to her thing. I'll let someone who knows anything about Dianne Feinstein get to their thing. But I got to say, it's pretty sad that the last thing anyone remembers her saying was, and it was something along the lines of, "I have something to say about this bill." What? Oh. And that was it.
Yeah.
Her de facto last words, her swan song to the world, and it was cut off by one of her handlers going, "Shut the fuck up and vote yes, bitch." Well, yeah, words to that effect, you know. Which is pretty sad. Not only is it the last thing we remember about Dianne Feinstein, I think it's the only thing I remember about Dianne Feinstein. She's a groundhog. She exists only for ceremonial purposes. Once in a while, she gets yanked out of her hole, and everyone goes, "Zim zalabim, the sky will not fall tonight." And then she's bundled away and left to hibernate again. She was never paid to think. She was never paid to improvise. She was paid to sign pieces of paper and regurgitate narratives and be the face that everyone can love or hate to their own discretion. And what's so sad about that is it describes any given electoral candidate, almost, pretty much. And it's not just incidentally, it's practically in the job description. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the old ones. Between her and Joe Biden and fucking Glitch McConnell, Congress is starting to look like a nursing home, as per the hot memes this season.
It's been that way for a long time.
Yeah, but the young ones have exactly the same positions. The 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, anything. They're just faces employed to say what they're told to say, and only what they're told to say by the spin doctors and the shit merchants behind the scenes who don't have to show their faces. It doesn't matter how old these dumb fuckers are. They're only there to be dumb fuckers anyway. The flaw is in the system itself. If you can even call it a flaw, you might say it's a feature, not a bug, of the oh-so-sacred and precariously dangling phenomenon we call our democracy.
Yeah, a large part of that has to be blamed on the voters, because a lot of people will go out and vote based on whether somebody has an R or a D behind their name here in the United States. And it's really bad. And this is something that when Occasional Cortex won her seat, I think it was Pelosi pointed out that a glass of water could be put on the ballot with a D behind its name and win that district, because they made this big deal about how she walked the district and got all these. Well, yeah, she beat the incumbent Democrat for the primary, because people knew her name more because she went around and pounded ground. But if that had been a Republican district, she could have done all that and beat the incumbent Democrat in the primary and still lost the seat. Like it's almost automatic for a lot of people. And where it's not, the Democrats end up taking over because they use tactics like, mail-in balloting and stuff like that, where they get people who weren't going to vote at all, and the only person who has come in and talked to them is the Democrat candidate. And they have sort of a yearbook and homecoming king and queen way of getting elected, where you get, a picture that kind of looks like a yearbook photo, a high school yearbook photo, and put it up everywhere, and everybody sees your face, and you put up signs everywhere, and everybody sees your name, and then when they go to vote, they remember what they saw, and like that's it. You get a lot of people that are not paying attention, that don't learn about the issues, that don't learn about the voting habits of their senators and congressmen, and then they get these people. And Feinstein, her history has it's got good and bad in it. She was on both sides, good and bad, of the environmentalist thing, in that they're like witches from the Wizard of Oz. There are good environmentalists and there are bad environmentalists. There are environmentalists that want to do things like getting the garbage out of lakes and rivers and changing how we farm so that we're not creating deadly algae blooms in our contained water systems and stuff, and clearing out underbrush from our woodsy areas to reduce the chances of forest fires spreading to your neighborhood where your house is and stuff like that. And then there's, we can't have any building in this 2,000-mile area because in the center of it there's this one particular type of mouse, and even though they're not going to the edges, you can't build on the edges. And she was both. The thing that really I remember about her was that she was always on the side of authoritarians when it came to like any national security issue, and people would bring up, well, this might infringe on citizen freedoms. It was like, well, we have to stop the enemy from getting us all. So we had, again, she's on good and bad in this. She was early on, and then her early part of her career, she was on the border security end of it, really good. But then as we get into closer to the 21st century, the border between 20th and 21st century, she starts getting into, the CIA can use torture. We can start spying on citizens. We can start getting more involved in electronic surveillance and stuff like that. That's okay. She was pro VAWA, obviously. She was pro banning particular types of guns. She was pro more surveillance to stop crime. But again, at the same time, she's on the good side and the bad side in both of that. She did stand up for due process at least once. But at the same time, she also gave accusers a set of procedural rights under federal law. She voted to give accusers for violent crime accusers a set of procedural rights, so they have standing to assert their rights in front of the court. And she's part of the reason that we have a nationwide Amber Alert communications network that, somebody gets kidnapped halfway across your state, your phone goes off in the middle of the night and wakes you up when there is literally nothing you can do about it
By the
to
way,
help
they're
the
testing big
victim.
one tomorrow.
Uh,
That
Yeah.
new one. It's gonna be at like 2:20, 2:30 EST. It's gonna play on everything: radio, cell phone, TV.
yeah.
Like 30 minutes.
So we're, like, she's the biggest problem that I have in terms of Feinstein is that she took the authoritarian side on just about everything. If it gave the authorities more power over the people, she was all for it. And if it took a top-down approach to something, she was all for it. And that really is typical, I would say, of feminists. And she was pro-feminist. She was pro women's advocacy and stuff like that. And then in the end, when she was getting close to death, she didn't retire when she should have.
Yep.
And they were telling her how to vote on things. And maybe they were telling her based on the way that she had always voted and everything. But I question whether her votes that she had to be told by her handlers were, this is how we're voting on this today. This is how we're voting on this today. If she had to be told, are those votes even valid?
Yeah.
Because that shouldn't be legal.
Well,
if you have
no.
somebody that's serving your population, your country, your district and whatever, that's going in to vote on your behalf, they should know what they're doing when they do it, and not have another person that you didn't vote for in there doing it instead. Even though, like I said at the beginning, the American people are voting based on whether somebody has an R or a D behind their name, which really people shouldn't be doing, because there's other letters, first of all, and maybe an I might be the best thing to look for, but the other thing is, you have to look for whether or not your candidate is authoritarian or libertarian within those areas. You got to look for, as your politician that you're voting for, did they run on wanting to censor the internet? Because there's a big push for that right now. And that was one thing she was for, by the way. So there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems that end up. She's not unusual, unfortunately.
No, not at all. Although there are some, I do get this sense that she stayed in office for similar reasons that Ruth Bader Ginsburg never retired either. I feel like there's, it's like a tactical decision to leave them in office, because they always have that, and the problem is that people grow old and die and become senile, but whoever is pulling the strings for Feinstein or even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they were just we're gonna run this into the ground, and then when we can't do anything else and they're gone, we'll find someone that's just like them. This is why Gavin Newsom was like, I'm gonna get, what was that character from Napoleon Dynamite? LaFonda Butler. Why? Because black woman. Lori Lightfoot, who obviously was a great mayor of Chicago based on the fact that she was a black woman that was a lesbian. On top of that, triple, bonuses, and yet, put Chicago in such a state that I had to leave. I'm not thrilled with this, and I hate that this is the way some people are doing things. And so, I think that this is one of the reasons why we have people in office that are way past their prime, because they're gonna vote in the way that their party likes, or whoever is behind them or whatever. And so they're like, you know what, this is your life now. You're gonna do this. You're not gonna retire because of everything that we're giving you, whatever it is, all of our donations, etc. And you're gonna stay in this position until you die. And that's what they're doing.
Brian, are you telling me that in her last tweet on her official Twitter, she did not in fact care that much about how Azerbaijan has been targeting the Nagorno-Karabakh area, and that 120,000 Armenians have been displaced and denied critical food and medicine? You're telling me that wasn't her?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
But
Go ahead.
as someone who fled from the state that she helped ruin, it's actually really interesting because you can see basically her fingers in every single facet of the rot of California
Mm-hmm.
from about the past 30 to 40 years. Every single little thing, she's behind it.
Yep.
She spearheaded the 1994 federal assault weapons ban back when, we decided that it wasn't good enough. California needed its own assault weapons ban as well. You look at her stances on immigration later in life. Look at her stances on abortion, on climate change mitigation, and public land management. One word: wildfires.
Yep.
Healthcare, the rainbow mafia rights, military and national security, mass surveillance of private citizens. It's all there.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's not the one directly behind it, she was the one hand-picking the future generation. Ponces like Kevin De Leon, who's the famous guy of, this is a ghost gun. It fires 30 caliber clip, 30 clip caliber per second. That guy.
Yeah.
And, I'm really struggling to maintain one of my principles, which is, try not to dance too much on your enemy's grave. But, and I definitely know it's going to take a hell of a lot more than this for California to change course on a damned thing.
Absolutely. I mean,
But
yeah, I guess celebrating
this is at
or
least a step.
dancing on her grave is ultimately, like, these people make sure that whatever they have planned is in place before they're gone. And that's part of this machine, right? So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel your pain, Lori Lightfoot. Basically, like, Chicago wasn't doing great. It's been run by organized crime for a long time, but like it was doing better. And then Lori Lightfoot goes in office, and it goes to shit. And then like the people will get mad and they kick her out, and then they like elect somebody even worse. So it's. I mean, the only way people are going to.
That guy has going for him is the fact that he's not Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, Brendan Johnson's not. He's worse, and. The only thing that's going to change is that they have to suffer enough. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, they're complaining that there's all these, I know we're getting into the political weeds here, but they're being bombarded with migrants and they're complaining. And it's like, you fucking voted for this. Like, people tried to warn you. Trump tried to warn you, and nobody thought he had anything valid to say. And now look at where we are.
Oh, in the past 24 hours alone. Past 24 hours alone, we've had a gay, liberal, minority-loving reporter shot and killed, murdered in his own home in a home invasion in Philly.
Oh, yeah.
We've had a far-left activist stabbed to death by a deranged homeless man in Brooklyn. And we've had a Democrat Congressman, Henry Cuellar, carjacked at gunpoint in D.C. by 4 black men.
Yep. This is America.
It's interesting in the U.S. A lot of people that voted Democrat while I was growing up, one of their main issues was, being the Democrat Party was pro-union, was seen as pro-union, right? And the Republican Party was seen as anti-union. But guess who the pro-union candidate was in 2020? I will give you a hint. It was not Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And the unions did not like Joe Biden. And yet somehow everybody that votes for whoever has a D behind their name because they're pro-union still voted for Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they are suffering now. And if you look at the history of the parties, the Democrat Party has flipped on all of their authoritarian issues between the 70s, the 1970s and 80s, and now. Dianne Feinstein's history of voting reflects that, where in the 70s, and she was in office in the 70s, by the way, in the 70s, she was voting to close the border. She was voting to, financially support clearing out underbrush in the forest and everything. And then at the opposite end, in the 20s, and in the 10s and the 20s, the teens and the 20s, she's voting to open the border, and she's voting against these environmental issues. In the 70s, she was voting to protect the United States by making sure our military is in good shape in case we need somebody, to protect us from an attack here in the United States. And in the teens and the 20s, she's voting to spy on American citizens and treat American citizens as combatants.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole party has done that. The whole Democrat Party has done that. And at the same time, the Republican Party has flipped on a bunch of things too. Like all of a sudden, in the teens and the 20s, they are the party of social welfare.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing a buttload of, we're going to fund this and we're going to fund that and we're going to fund this and we're going to fund that, but they're not protecting any of the things that they have historically protected. They're not protecting the ability to do business in this country. They're not protecting the ability to maintain independent on our own energy production in this country. All right, they're not protecting the citizens' individual rights anymore. They've just completely, we hear uniparty. It's pretty much become a thing. It's real.
Mm-hmm.
They're the same party.
Oh yeah,
they're all voting yes for authoritarian measures.
Sure.
They're all voting no for citizen measures.
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah, that's the problem. It's not about Dianne Feinstein. It's not about any individuals. And that's kind of the point. Because under democracy, we're not led by leaders, certainly not individual leaders. We're led by parties, by oligarchies, if you will. Those parties have their elected leaders, but they're not so much leaders as logos, sort of mascot. Yeah. They're not leaders, they are led. In much the same way a corporation might change its logo ever so slightly every 4 years or so. Underneath the packaging, it's all the same bullshit as ever, but now it seems like a whole new product because we changed the color scheme. Now that sounds like some sort of metaphor, but need I remind you, it's not. We are now at the point in history where our political representatives are quite literally being chosen based on their color scheme.
Yep.
And that shouldn't surprise you. Why would it surprise you? A political party, much like a corporation, is subject to advertising. And advertising is always subject to the mimetic winds of change. Some call it fashion, some call it trends. Whatever it is, it's always there by virtue of not being there.
Yeah.
Octopuses don't change their spots. And by that, I mean they do change their spots. It's what they do because of camouflage. And they can't not do it any more than a leopard can not do it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope all of that made sense. I'm pretty sure it must have.
It does, but we should move on. This was supposed to be the short one. So let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. Let me see if there's any super chows. I kind of forgot to check that. There is. So I got a super chow from Richard HBR, and he says,
his name is John C.
Okay, and for $5 he says, when a occasional Cortex was elected the first time, I heard that about only 4% of the eligible voters even bothered to go out to vote. So is that voter suppression if for some reason 96% are that apathetic? Well, I mean, the apathy is, I think, part of the purpose. It's to like make people less engaged by making the whole process appear obnoxious. And then you get people that are like, well, I'm not going to do anything. And of course that helps, that helps our overlords, because if their people are not interested, then they're not going to get educated. Then they're not going to make, either they're going to make no decisions at all, or they're going to make bad decisions. So anyway, thank you, Richard, for that. But we got to move on to the next story. So let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Do you even know who what's her name? Harvey Fierstein? What is it? Dianne Feinstein? Sorry, Harvey Feinstein's the actor. I got to call my mother. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about Pink. I don't know if you guys remember Pink from the When was she big? Like in the early 2000s?
Early
Yeah,
2000s,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
She had the train wreck anthem. I'm a hazard to myself, I think, or Don't Let Me Get Me, or whatever it's called. If you hear a woman rocking out to that song, don't date her.
Yeah. Really.
Just saying. That's
red flag or a pink flag, as it were.
pink flag. Yep, that would be the pink flag. If that's their favorite song, then there's something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mike J. Let's have it. Let's talk about Pink.
So first, do you have the picture of her from the article?
I do, where she's like screaming or whatever. You know what? Let me share this my page with you guys anyway, because I got some videos for the next story, and you're gonna need to watch them. So there you go.
All right.
I'm just saying, like, if you look at the picture of her, I think let me let me check the screen just to make sure it's the same one that I'm thinking of. Yeah, I'm gonna say something, you can't unsee it after I say this.
Oh boy.
White Leslie Jones.
Yeah. Wow. What happened? I mean, not that I ever thought she was super hot, but anyway, go ahead.
I mean, she's pushing her mid-40s.
She is. She's 44 years old, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you know, props to her for still doing her thing, but
yeah.
So, during a concert in San Antonio, Texas, the singer Pink took time out of her set to lambaste and oust a concert goer. The audience member who was in the front row, mere inches from Pink, held up his cell phone and pointed at her in an effort for her to notice him. And it worked. But sadly for him, it worked. Pink paused, saying, quote, "What does that say?" End quote. The man's phone displayed the words, quote, "circumcision, cruel and unusual," end quote. Pink hostily responded after reading the message, saying, quote, "Oh, wow, you're making a whole point right now, aren't you? Do you feel good about yourself? Are you going to be all right? You spent all this money to come here and do that? Come on, dude, I'm going to have to buy a Birkin bag with that ticket money. Get that shit out of here. He wants all of you to read it. He came here tonight to talk about circumcision. Get out. We need to get that out of here. Get it out. Get that cancer out, man." End quote. Security quickly removed the man while the audience booed him. As the man was escorted out, Pink couldn't help but add one last jab, stating, quote, "I feel bad. I feel bad that he wasted his time tonight." End quote.
So, if he wanted to maximize the positive feedback from his stunt, all he had to do was alter the wording to read, "Genital mutilation is cruel and unusual." See, that I feel would have received the usual hooray, clap, clap, stunning and brave, let's move on to the next current thing. But you'll notice what the difference is there and how it works. What is implicitly signified by genital mutilation is FGM, female genital mutilation. The term circumcision implicitly signifies male genital mutilation or circumcision. Because we've all decided, like as a civilization, to only use the euphemisms when the bad thing is happening to males. And that is literally where the argument ends. Genital mutilation does not happen to males because we call it something else. Circumcision does not happen to women because we call it what it is, genital mutilation. The be-all and end-all of the argument is things are only what they are if we say they are. Because reality is what we say it is. End of argument. And that's why this guy caught himself some mob justice that night, because he used the euphemism that refers to male suffering. That's...
Hello?
No,
Did we lose Mike? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he'll come back. Maybe something happened with his mic. I can hear you guys just fine, and you guys can hear me.
All right.
So,
all right.
Well, go ahead, Hannah, if you want to add something to that.
I guess the thing I'll point out is when I first heard about this, which was like 5 minutes before showtime, I thought, oh, maybe she just didn't want politics, in her show and everything. And then I heard what she said, and it's pretty obvious that she has disdain for the issue, specifically because it's about male genitalia. And it's if it was anything else, if it was anything that she could come down on a female side, because there's not really a male-female side on this. There are men and women on both sides of the circumcision issue. Although I will say, I think women who are pro-circumcision for appearance sake, like not their appearance, but the appearance of
aesthetic purposes,
the genitalia.
Like, I prefer men, whatever. Yeah.
Right. Women who think cut men are pretty and intact men are ugly are sexual predators, in my opinion, because they think that you need to have your genitalia scarred in order to be attractive to them. Like that's one thing. But I think that her disdain for this is specifically because it's an issue of having compassion for men. And she has disdain for the idea of having compassion for men. I think if somebody had held up a POWMIA sign or anything like that, where the overwhelming majority of sufferers are men, and historically almost all of the sufferers are men, that it's been, a request for compassion for men, or male homelessness, or male suicide. It wouldn't matter. If it was anything about men, I think she would have had the same reaction. And I think that was her real problem here, was she was being asked to have compassion for men's bodily autonomy and suffering that happens because of men. Now, in terms of, I would not previously have considered it to be very effective to, proselytize basically a political issue to a performing artist at a concert. But this proves me wrong, because now everybody's talking about it.
True.
Right. And now people are on both sides are deciding on the issue, talking about the issue, not just talking about whether this was the time or the place, but what's wrong with her that she had this reaction, or was this reaction justified? So actually, maybe intactivists ought to start picketing her venues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, when I heard about this story, a part of me was like, well, we don't like it when people cram politics into our leisure time. Like, if I go to a concert, I don't want someone going up and, making it about something that is not about the music, which is why I'm there. And I still agree with that as an idea, but I think that Pink's reaction says a lot. Like, she could have ignored it. She could have, she could have just
this
ignored
wouldn't have
it.
been a thing if she just looked at it and continued on with her performance.
Right.
No, we would not be talking about this right now.
Right. So the fact that she had this reaction and threw this guy out, that is actually the story. Not the fact that a guy came there, what I can only assume is an intactivist, and made this statement. Like, with this phone, he didn't even really speak. He didn't have a microphone. He didn't have a platform. He just had his cell phone with words on it. That is probably, people do that all the time. I'm sure that if you go to a Taylor Swift concert, you will see feminist signs and women making, because she's kind of one of their icons, like Beyonce. But that doesn't become a story, because everyone basically just accepts it as the norm. So the problem is, and this, is Pink's reaction, the fact that she threw somebody out when she could have just let it go. And this makes me wonder also, because she does have a son, I think. And I wonder if her, because this is one thing I have seen in videos when I first started getting into this content. There are some videos of intactivists interviewing people on the street about circumcision. And if they come across parents of boys who have circumcised their child, and they try to explain to them that what they did is wrong, these people become very, very hostile and sometimes violent, because they don't want to face the possibility that they made a mistake by cutting their son. And I wonder if Pink's reaction isn't telling about a choice that she made about her child, but I don't know. I tried to look it up. Obviously, it's not exactly a news story, but if she has a son, then she may have done that. Or worse, she could be one of these celebrities that thinks her son is non-binary or a girl or something. So who knows? I mean, it's telling that her reaction is so strong, is basically what I'm saying. So
Pink
Anyway.
has 2 children, 12-year-old Willow and 6-year-old Jameson.
So which are
So
they?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, daughter and son.
Okay. All right. Well, those are my thoughts on that. So does anyone else have anything else to add? Is Mike back? Mike, are you still muted? Mike check 1 2 1 2 3. He might still be having issues. I really want to hear his commentary on the next story, but let us know what you guys think about.
I will say that this did prove that Pink is a hazard to herself. No, she didn't like the issue, and she didn't want to be associated with it, and she didn't want to be discussed in conjunction with her music and her concert. She did exactly the polar opposite of what she should have done in order to prevent all of that. Somebody let her get her. Apparently she didn't know herself, and now she probably doesn't want to be her friend anymore. Just saying. I know the song because, goddamn, I had to hear the lyrics belted out, out loud for years by the women around me. I hate this fucking song, and I've never really been a fan of her because of it.
Go ahead,
I will say she does have 2 very photogenic children.
Okay, so her children are pretty. Is she married or is she a single mom?
I'm pretty sure she's still married.
Okay, well, that's super
I think
rad, I guess.
She might have even been
to
pretty when she was younger.
Carrie Hart.
Wow, he's close to her age too?
Yeah.
That's crazy. You don't see that in show business. Well, I mean, I guess then if she has 2 kids and probably one of them is a son, and she got this upset, I can only assume that she did have her son circumcised. And this guy's protest or his statement, it pinched a nerve. I mean, that's the only thing I can figure. But I don't know for sure. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. I do have some super chows that I gotta do shout outs for, so I'm just gonna play the Badger Sand sounds because some people are tired of the John Cena clip, which I understand. So Richard Bier gives us $5 and says, let me see. Isn't Pink the one who declared that her toddler age child was trans and she was putting the child on the medical path towards that end? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It seems a pros. So I don't know if anybody.
Let me see if I can check.
See if you can find out.
The most I've found is she's raising her daughter, her oldest daughter Willow, as a gender neutral.
Oh God.
I'm not seeing anything as trans or anything like that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what if? Okay, whatever. I mean,
This is just a dumb attempt to stay trendy.
Yeah. Well, she's
she's
already committed a couple of terrible sins against progressivism by marrying a guy, having children with him, staying with him. I mean, that sounds very, very transphobic and
been married for 17
heteronormative.
Years, God bless.
Yeah, it sounds really heteronormative. I guess you gotta make some kind of statement so the G Mafia doesn't come after you.
I am gonna have to shout out about this, right?
Okay.
I'll bet none of you guys, even in my friend group for the most part, unless you've been friends with my kids and they've talked to you about it, you don't know what their sexuality is. You don't know if they have a gender identity that's different from their birth identity. You don't know any of that stuff, right?
Yeah, because you didn't make it into an announcement.
Yeah,
right.
It's none of our fucking business.
They're not accessories to my life, right?
Yeah.
They are people, human beings, whole, entire, separate human beings that have their own lives, their own interests, their own privacy that they deserve. The very little bit that I do talk about them in conjunction with issues and everything has been about what actions I have taken and what actions I have not taken. None of y'all know whether my son is circumcised or not, and you won't. You only know that if he is, I didn't do it, and if he's not, it's because he decided it was not for him, right? That's all you know, because that's all that's important is me as an intactivist, me saying it's not the parents' decision, right? You don't know any of that. right? You don't know how many kids any of my kids. You know I'm a grandma, but you don't know which kid. You don't know any of that, right? Because it's not anybody else's business. It's their business if they wanted to disclose that. You don't see me putting up dozens of pictures of my kids online because anybody can find those images. Anybody, right? And it really pisses me off the way that a lot of these women treat their children like purse puppies, like fucking purse puppies. That's not your purse puppy. It's a human being with their own spectrum of interests and feelings and experiences and needs and wants, and they deserve their privacy. And if they want to not be private, that's their choice. They should have that autonomy. They're not accessories to put on display. And a lot of women fail to recognize that their children are not part of them. They are individuals. They are individuals from the day they are born. It's why they go through the terrible twos. It's why they have temper tantrums, because the child is not you. It's not part of you. Doesn't have part of your interest, male or female, he or she. Does not base their interests and their wants and needs on mommy. And it's for us to know all that shit about Star's children. If I was famous for something like this, singing, dancing, being pretty, or being ugly, or being great at acting, or any of that stuff, any entertaining stuff, and they started pursuing my kids, my first response would be, get the fuck away from them. They're not accessories to my life. Let them have their lives. You want to know about me? Look at me. They can decide that when they get older, if they want to follow in my footsteps. And stars don't do that. They put their kids on display. They treat them as political fodder. They treat them as ways to get more attention on themselves. Oh, look, I have adopted a child of a different race. Oh, look, I've gone to another country to adopt a child. Oh, look, my child is the latest thing that everybody supports.
My adopted child is now trans.
Yes. My adopted child is now trans, right? Look, I have made my child look like mini-me. It's stop. They're human. Treat them like people. But they're not going to, because y'all out there reading those magazines about entertainers and movies and all that stuff, eat that shit up. Right? They post an article about Rosie O'Donnell's kid being a trans and lesbian or whatever. Everybody is reading that. The article about Rosie O'Donnell donating more than she's legally allowed to donate during campaigns. Almost nobody read that. But when the article was about her kid being dysfunctional, everybody wanted to know. Yeah. And so of course, that stuff sells. Yeah. And nobody is up for changing that, except the very small few people that recognize this is not good for children, and you shouldn't be doing this to children, and it's going to continue to happen to children because of this.
Yes. All right. So, hello. Oh, hey, Mike.
Am I returned? Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Right, yes, you're back.
I think I know roughly where I was cut off.
Okay.
So I was going on about the specificity of his message, and how there's a certain line of specificity that you have to go down. You'll notice if your message is reform the divorce courts to a mob of Pink fans, the response will be, hell yeah, women are mistreated and oppressed in the divorce courts. Woo, yeah, clap. And so if you go suicide is the number one cause of death, you'll be cut off by the chance of, woo, yeah, women shouldn't kill themselves. Let's get it on. Awooga, awooga, wah, wah, awooga, awooga. Fuck, man, am I right?
Yeah.
If you bring up any issue in an ungendered framing, you'll immediately get this wave of women are oppressed. Oh, women are oppressed. Like there will be no window open for you in which to clarify, oh no, wait, I was actually talking about male victims. It's a mob of Pink fans. shallow, unimaginative cunts who have not an ounce of respect or compassion for anyone who doesn't look like them, anyone who doesn't talk like them, anyone whose Saints Row customizable character doesn't match theirs by 60% or more. But my man here found accidentally, or perhaps unfortunately, found that bypass button. Mm-hmm. He found the puzzle that feminism has already solved. Mm-hmm. Genital mutilation. When it happens to females, it is what it is. Genital mutilation. When it happens to males, it is a fluffy cloud in a clear blue sky full of Care Bears telling you everything's fine, shut the fuck up, bro.
Yeah.
At the point of their AK-47s.
Yeah.
And you will never escape this paradigm as long as you submit to their newspeak. The first step, my friend, is to discard the euphemism and describe what you're talking about. It's called male genital mutilation. Mm-hmm. Specifically male, because that is the kind that is still practiced by state-appointed doctors, not just legally, but by state-appointed doctors all over the world, the West, the East, all over the place. Yes, it would most definitely trigger Pink even more if you said male genital mutilation is cruel and unusual. Because you know exactly what the outraged response would be. Why male genital mutilation? Don't you care about the dozens upon dozens of girls who get...
Yeah.
And the answer, the appropriate logical answer is, yes, we are concerned with that. But we're in this country right here where we're talking, where the shit that happens to girls is illegal and the shit that happens to boys is not illegal. That's what we're talking about. That's what we want to change. You won't get to make that argument, obviously. You will be drowned out by the feminist wailing along the lines of, "Ooh!" I think that's what Pink does. That's what Pink does, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And you'll be lucky if you make it out alive if you do that. But at least you will have advanced the argument beyond the euphemistic force field around it. At least you would have introduced these savages to the phrase male genital mutilation. Because I would wager for many of them, it would be the first time in their lives they'd even heard those words put together in that order. That's the only way you'll so much as make a dent in the linguistic armor that's been placed around this worldview. If you stay within the boundaries of their newspeak, then the moment you step onto the boundary line, you'll get whisked away like this guy did, like a leaf in the wind, and no one will remember you except us and I guess whoever wrote the article we're highlighting. So, next time, my friend, big sign, biggest sign you can muster, written in the biggest letters you can muster, stop butchering dicks.
Yeah.
Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. If you're going to do something wrong, do it right. Yeah. You're gonna get kicked out anyways. You might as well rustle some feathers on your way out. I am, of course, not a real doctor. None of this is medical advice.
I did notice something that I think explains her reaction.
I did get a super chow that gives additional context.
That's what I'm gonna piggyback off of. I looked it up.
Well, let me
go ahead, read it first.
Yeah, let me read the rest of the super chows first, and then I'll let you piggyback off of the last one. But I do want to read Meredith Cheese because she sent it in for $5. Thank you. And she says, HBR News 425. There was a photo that came up in the last few years of Pink's son in a wet bathing suit. Clearly showed the boy was circumcised. Ugh, that is another reason she went after the man in her audience. Thank you, Meredith. And then I got one from V for Vernon. Hello, Vernon. What's up? He gives us $5 and says, bloodstained men are doing a ton of tweets about the incident and follow-up regarding it. Pink cut her son, flaunted it on social media, and the concert protester is protesting her on that basis. The fact she did that is not news. Yeah, I feel like I heard something now that you mention it, but it was from some years ago. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, this was from over 4 years ago. It was honestly just a really cute little picture of her and her children at the beach. And yeah, I guess her son, unbeknownst to her before the photo, took his swim diaper off. And yeah, you could clearly make such a thing out.
Mm.
And people just began attacking her for that. And all she was trying to do was pink, I mean. And
For her son being circumcised, or for
yes,
okay.
And she blew up at them because she was just like, I just wanted to share a fun picture with my son. I didn't know this was a huge thing. And I think that's why she had such a visceral reaction to this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you know, say what you will about the one side or the other on this, but, you know, just trying to share a picture of your children and getting pretty heinously attacked by some of the things I'm reading here, without anyone really trying to do anything other than attack. No one's like educating about this. No one's saying like, you know, the pluses or minuses of this. It's just how fucking dare you have done this, you fucking monster. I can see how someone would develop some pretty negative opinions. You know what I mean?
There's two things that go on with the intactivism discussion that are very unproductive. One of them is, and I'm gonna say this as carefully as I can. There are a lot of guys who, once they understand what was done to them, are very rightfully angry about it, and it's a very difficult anger to process. And I feel comfortable comparing that anger to how you would feel if you were molested as a child and you remembered being molested, but you never understood that it was wrong until you became an adult, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, this thing that happened to me when I was a kid was really bad, and I have all of these issues because of it, right? And that is not to say that all circumcised men have a bunch of mental issues and you know, I need to be flamed because of that. But there are health issues that arise from it, and there are emotional issues that arise from it because it is a traumatic experience. It causes difficulty in processing the emotions, and a lot of feminist complaints that men don't show their emotions might actually trace back to the fact that they are put through a traumatic experience that causes shock when they're a day or two old. So there's that, and that anger can result, if a person has not been raised to communicate effectively when they're angry, can result in ineffective ways of approaching the issue with other people. And at the other end of it, you do have people who are trying to justify them for themselves. I was cut and I'm okay with it, or I cut my kid and I'm okay with it. Either of those two things are going to put you on the defensive. And unfortunately, when you get point A and point B in the same conversation, sparks really fly, and both sides communicate very ineffectively, and you get this level of hostility and rage back and forth at each other that the discussion doesn't ever move forward, and it makes it very difficult for people trying to get across, hey, you know, you were actually lied to by all the physicians that told you this was a good idea. And all of that guilt tripping that they did to try to get you to do this was all lies. And, you know, if you're going to be mad at somebody as a parent when you did this, and like with her saying, I didn't know this was an issue, this is a major thing. A lot of parents have listened to medical practitioners and assumed that they were being given good, solid information, because when somebody becomes a doctor, they become a doctor because they want to heal people. Except sometimes somebody becomes a doctor because they want to get rich, right? Sometimes somebody becomes any profession because that makes a lot of money like that, strictly because they want to get rich, or because they think that they're better than everybody else. Yes, there are people who become doctors because they want to dedicate their lives to service to their fellow human being. But there are also people who become doctors because they're fucking assholes and they want to take advantage of your weakness or your injury or your bad luck or whatever and make a lot of money off of it. And you can't just... And then the other thing is, somebody having the best intentions in the world can be completely wrong about something. So you should always second guess that kind of advice. But a lot of people don't. And recognizing that, hey, it might have been a mistake to not second guess this expert advice, and maybe we should be mad at the expert, and maybe we should be more careful the next time, shouldn't necessarily come with a shitload of condemnation, right? Because we're told that we can't treat ourselves, that we can't practice medicine for ourselves and our neighbors, because you have to be licensed for this. So it's reasonable for people to have trusted until they realize that you shouldn't. And the whole discussion is warped by all of those issues. And so somebody like Pink, who has maybe never heard of the issue until somebody started yelling at her about it, the best approach when dealing with a person who is unaware of the issue entirely is not to browbeat them, not to blast them with rage and accuse them of things and call them names and stuff, but to try to gently educate and get them to understand that, hey, you were lied to, you were taken advantage of, your doctor profited from your trust, from betraying your trust, and this is a serious issue that maybe you can't prevent that from happening in your family, but you could go on to help prevent other families from having the same experience, and go from there, instead of flaming her with thousands of social media attacks.
All she's going to see is, why are all these angry people so obsessed with my son's genitals all of a sudden?
Now, the other end of it is like, a lot of us in the movement, if we suddenly got 1,000 angry tweets about an issue that we didn't know existed, or 10,000 angry tweets about an issue that we didn't know existed, we'd start researching it, right? But most people don't do that. And most people aren't even taught growing up that that's how to think anymore. My parents raised me that way because they were teachers, but most teachers tell kids to memorize things by rote and vomit it back, not to research it. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
again,
I see that. I see that side of it.
There's one last puzzle piece here.
Okay.
And it's something I did not know until about 10 minutes ago. And I think this may also have a little bit of bearing on this too. I'll try not to put too fine of a point on this. I'll try not to make it too on the nose.
Oh.
But if you were to ask Pink where you could get a good bagel, she'd know.
Oh, I see. So this could be I was thinking that was possible. And that's a big issue. Like, people who are intactivists are always running into problems with Judaism because it's a part of the practice. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that, I don't know what to, I get it. Like, it's an uphill battle, guys. I don't know what to tell you, because they have the Jews have basically, they have made a lot of apologia for circumcision, and they stand by it. And it's hard. Like, in Iceland, they were gonna ban it, and the Jewish lobby got involved. They said, no, this is anti-Semitic. So I mean, I don't know what to tell. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I guess this is like why this is one of the hardest men's rights issues to address, even though it should be the easiest.
The really tough thing about that is, like, there's even an intactivist movement within the Jewish religion.
There is. Like, Fred Hayward has spoken about it. Yeah. So we know
part of the reason there is because modern circumcision among Jews is not the same as it was historically.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that it was changed was because of I can't think of the time period, but there was a particular rabbi that was upset that men who wanted to be in, I want to say in the Olympics, back when the Olympics was nude, were doing foreskin restoration. They were stretching it to not appear different from the other guys.
Yeah.
And we said, no, this is a thing that's supposed to separate us out from other men. So now we're going to cut more. And they went to the tight circumcision they have today, because of that. And there's Reformation efforts to go back to the original way, and there's Reformation efforts of like, we don't have to do this anymore, and so on. And it's a different story when it's a part of religion and everything. And I understand that there are going to be people that are going to be like, well, if you're not Jewish, it's none of your business what's going on in the Jewish faith. But if you're telling people who are not Jewish that we can't in our communities make a decision regarding whether this is acceptable within the community or not, because it's part of your religion, then you're opening up your religion to criticism.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. So, and I don't want to.
Can't have it both ways.
Yeah, this one's going a little long, but I will say that I think that if you could justify violating someone's rights for the sake of religion, it's a slippery slope, and that's not me calling it a fallacy. It is a slippery slope. So that is something that I think the defense of human rights in this country should trump anything like that. Otherwise, they could legalize all kinds of stuff if it's according to religion, and we're not those places. This isn't Israel. This is the United States. So, but anyway, with all that said, let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. It is a bit of a tricky subject, especially when you're talking about Judaism, but I look forward to seeing what you guys' thoughts are on this Pink story. And it's actually funny because the next story is related in a way, because it's like whether or not, like a certain topic is like whether there's a right place or time, and what is going too far, and what is constructive or not constructive. And even like to some degree, there's a little bit of religion in there too. But first, I got a Rumble rant, from OIC for $1, and they say some cash for you guys and Rumble. Hopefully, this is a small token against the draconian UK government, probably cutting off Dr. Randerbrand, although he is back. So, he is risen, and he's back in the chat.
Yes, hello.
And then I got a super chat from Albatross for $2, and they say Pink treated that protester like a hollaback girl. That's a Gwen Stefani reference, but I see what you're saying. It's actually, I think it would have been better if they say, there you go, looking pitiful, just because I let you go. That's a better reference to Pink. Anyway, let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I'm going to move on to the last story. Well, actually, I got one more, but I don't know if we're going to get to it. But we'll cover this. We got to talk about Calvin Robinson, but mostly Lawrence Fox. There is an interesting story here. I know it was talked about last week, but this is kind of big, a lot going on, and I want to show you guys a couple of clips while we're going through this. So Lawrence Fox, pictured on the right there, the bald guy, has been canceled after making comments about Ava Evans after her dismissive response to male issues on a BBC Politics live panel. And I got this Twitter, I think this is the Culture War Talking Point discussion. So let's see, this discussion was based on whether or not there should be a Minister for Men in the UK.
Conservative MP, new role would champion issues such as reducing male suicide.
Twitter, so.
Would that be something you'd be in favour of?
Well, what's interesting about that is the hostility it sometimes faces whenever it comes up. I saw a programme where there was like a feminist academic and a Lib Dem MP, and they were so hostile to this idea. And I thought, if you flipped those things, i.e. that it's the biggest cause of death for men under 50 is suicide, men are less likely to go to the doctors, men are less likely to maintain friendships. If that was for women, we'd often look at, well, why is society making that happen? Whereas with men, the argument is often, why are they doing that to themselves? So I'm not like totally wedded to the idea, but the hostility towards the idea, I find it instructive.
Ava?
I think that it feeds into the culture a little bit, this Minister for Men argument. In my mind, I think there should be a Minister for Mental Health, which would be all-encompassing. I mean, you've got something like 7 million children waiting for prescriptions for mental health at the moment. It's a crisis that's endemic throughout the country, not specific to men. And I think, a lot of ministers kind of bandy this about to sort of I'm sorry, but make an enemy out of women. I think not you, and I don't think your book is.
I don't
Sunak.
accept that. I don't think it is to make an enemy. If we looked at during COVID, men were literally more likely to die from COVID. And I don't really want to cast myself as a meninist or one of these guys from the manosphere, because that's not who I am. But I do find it interesting that sometimes the arguments tend to throw it back.
But who was doing all the work during COVID? You know, a lot of the time, if you looked into people's households, it was the women who were taking all the laundry, the school care.
They were doing laundry while men were dying.
Disputing any of that. What I'm saying that there are specific issues that men face that might warrant specific attention. I mean, literally, the biggest killer of men under 50 is suicide. That is an arresting statistic. And if that doesn't warrant specific attention, mental health is an umbrella issue.
I have to say that is also because women are unsuccessful. That is a lot of feeds into that statistic.
Okay,
it feels like it just doesn't feel like you've got any space for this idea that men might have.
For a minute, please. You have no. It's not because women are unsuccessful. It's because they're counting self-harm that doesn't have suicide as its ultimate goal as a suicide attempt when women do it, but not when men do it. That's bullshit, and we've got to stop putting up with them saying that. It's not that women are unsuccessful at committing suicide. It's that they didn't intend to in the first place.
Yeah, of course. But this guy, like, he's well-meaning. He might just be a little bit uninformed. That's why he's saying, well, I'm not one of those manosphere guys. He's trying, like, he's a normie blue pill guy that is taking notice of something and thinks, well, I think the reasonable thing would be to start a ministry for men. I don't see the big deal. And of course,
honestly, I don't have any issue with guys distancing themselves from the movement if they're not part of the movement and they're not activists and they're not trying to persuade people based on activism. That's fine. They don't have to be an MRA. You don't have to be an environmentalist, right? You don't have to be somebody that's going out and marching and holding signs and blocking traffic in the road to be like, maybe we shouldn't dump used condoms into the lake.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I know.
Maybe we shouldn't use high potassium fertilizer around the lake. Like, you don't have to do. And he's perfectly well within his rights to say that. The thing I take issue with is we, as a movement, have tolerated this type of statement this woman has made. Well, the reason that women are lower suicide is because women
they suck at it.
No.
Yeah, we know.
It's because being a cutter doesn't make you suicidal.
Yes,
right? It's because harming yourself with the intention that somebody will find you and rescue you is not a suicide attempt.
Well, yeah. So my point with this is that I'm mentioning this man because I don't think he knows that is that argument that you're making. And he's trying.
Right? No. I know. I'm not condemning him.
Yeah, I know. But
she's
her. Yes, of course.
And I'm
but
saying,
she's doing what
you, me, our movement. Yeah. We have tolerated that.
Yes,
we don't push back on that.
No.
And now we look at this guy. Right? He knows what he knows because of us. And I'm not saying Honey Badger Radio alone. I'm saying as a whole.
Like the
men's
conversation.
Rights movement he knows what he knows because of us.
Yes.
All right. That means what he doesn't know, he doesn't know.
Right.
Because of us.
Right. Sure. No, I get it.
I'm really irate about this, and it's probably personal because like when I tried to commit suicide, I was trying to take myself out, and actually the thought of being found by somebody and having them have to go through finding me and having their experience, my parents go through that experience. That's what stopped me. Yeah. Right. It's exactly the polar opposite of what most women do.
Right.
It's exactly the polar opposite of the cries for help that you get from women where they cut their wrists in a bathtub 5 minutes before their partner's going to come home, so their partner's going to find them and stop the bleeding before they die. Or they take a bunch of pills and then they call somebody. Come and get me, I've taken a bunch of pills. That's not a suicide attempt. Right? This guy doesn't know that because we haven't said it enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been saying
you get my point?
I do.
I'm not condemning
saying
him.
We've been saying it, but we don't get the reach. But I understand what you mean. I'm saying this is her tactic, and he's not prepared for it. Yes,
right.
But this isn't the story, though. This is just just the beginning. But go.
But I'm so tired of hearing that argument. No. Women think that argument's going to be successful.
Yeah. Well,
because they don't get pushback on it enough.
Right. Agreed. All right, let me finish this clip. It's almost over.
Unique challenges that face them. And the problem is, even as I'm saying this, in my mind, it's like I've got out the violin and I don't
So she's smiling at this, by the way.
I don't want to be this guy, because that's part of the problem, is because you're encouraged at one level is men need to talk about their problems more, and then the moment you do it, you're like, all right, not quite so often and not quite so loud. So like you say, the book is more light-hearted than that, but it certainly goes around.
Okay, so there's more. So that was the initial clip, okay? Comedian and political commentator Geoff Norcott was asked first if he'd be in favor of this. Instead of answering directly, he instead examined the hostility around the idea. He illustrated this by flipping the gender. The biggest cause of death for men under 50 is suicide. If that's what's happening to women, we'd ask, why is society making that happen? But for men, we ask, why are they doing this to themselves? He said, concluding that he's not wedded to the idea of a minister for men, but that the hostility towards the idea is instructive. Journalist Ava Evans, that was the woman, responds by saying that she thinks this is all lending to a culture war, which there's something that they hate because they're cultural revolutionaries and we are just responding to it, therefore it's a war, but they started it, and there should only be a minister for mental health because, we can't include men in something because it's not specific to men. She then accuses a lot of people, not Geoff Norcott, of making these arguments to make an enemy out of women. Geoff Norcott defends himself as not one of the manosphere guys and says that there are specific issues that men face that may warrant specific attention, while Evans smirks at him the whole time. After this panel, Geoff tweets a screenshot with the caption, "When you're fairly sure you're making a reasonable point, but it ain't playing out like that," which is what we see here, where he's like, why are women so hostile towards this?
That's how you know you're in the manosphere. No one has a perfect example of what means you're in the manosphere and not in the manosphere. But saying that there are specific issues that men face, yes, sorry, bruv, you're in the manosphere now. Mm-hmm. You're on the naughty list. That's what that means.
Mm-hmm. It's just like the old adage, you don't join Gamergate, you get thrown in with Gamergate.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
And the fact is, women whose whole outlook, whose whole existence is about exploiting compassion for women for political fodder and money, get very angry when you suggest that men are human beings who deserve human compassion. And that's what happened here. That's what this woman, she was mad because he suggested that compassion is a resource that men should have access to as well. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not for those who are going, but you're talking about a pro-government thing because this is a pro. I don't think there should be a minister for women, and I don't think that a minister for men is going to.
It probably
be
isn't gonna
everything that men think it's going to be.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be very useful anyway because it's a government program. I mean, like at the end of the day, it's lip service at best. Right,
but the point is that she's angry at the idea of a minister for men because she fears that even the tiny percent of the time where a minister for men might actually act in men's best interests, that it'll take away from women. Right. Yeah. It'll take away privileges. It'll take away, if they act in men's interests, it'll take away women's privilege of being able to override somebody's due process rights just because he is a man. Right? Of being able to override somebody's parental rights just because he is a man and still try to hold him to all of his parental responsibilities, even though you've taken away his rights that are associated, that are necessary in order to help him fulfill those responsibilities.
Yeah.
So, they fear that. They fear those ideas. But it is ultimately all about being offended at the idea of compassion for men.
Yeah.
And again, we need to stop tolerating that. We need to start calling that out. You don't care about this issue, ladies. You are angry that men might receive human compassion. Yeah. You have decided that is a female right only, and you want to exclude men from that, and there you go. And if they start trying to push back with mental health and blah, 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 no. You don't get that. You're not entitled to that. You don't get to deflect from issues that affect men because they are men. You don't get to deflect from the underlying idea of compassion for men by trying to portray men as being mentally ill because they have self-interest.
Yeah. All right, there's more. This gets spicier, so let me finish this. So then, after he made this tweet, Ava, the woman on the panel, retweets it, saying, let me see, where is it? Well, she retweeted it, the same thing, and she said, he was, and I was a little rash in my anti-minister for men comments, which I do regret, and am actually very interested in a brief for a minister on young men's mental health. And then Lawrence Fox went on a bit of a rant on GB News, which I will play here. It's only about a minute and 15 seconds, saying how self-respecting men would not shag her. Not the best angle to make a disagreement, but to be fair, Ava Evans has done the same in the past. But let's play this.
We're past the watershed, so I can say this. Show me a single self-respecting man that would like to climb into bed with that woman, ever. Ever. Who wasn't an incel, who wasn't a cucked little incel. That little woman has been fed, spoon-fed oppression day after day after day after day, starting with the lie of the gender wage gap. And she sat there and I'm going like, if I met you in a bar and that was like sentence 3, chances of me just walking away are just huge. We need powerful, strong, amazing women who make great points for themselves. We don't need these sort of feminist 4.0. They're pathetic and embarrassing. Who'd want to shag that?
Oh, Lawrence. Well, look, she...
All right, I'm going to pause it there. So and then Lawrence Fox got in trouble for this. He was suspended from GB News for his comments. This is Ava's thing where she tweeted about it. And then we have this other thing, which I'm going to show you in a second. According to the BBC, Fox's comments attracted widespread condemnation, including from Labour MP and Shadow Attorney General Emily Thornberry, who tagged media regulator Ofcom into a post on X in an apparent call for it to intervene. British television should never subject women to this sort of abuse, she said. Host Dan Wooten, I think that's how you say it, who could be seen laughing at points as Fox spoke, which in the video clip we just saw, issued 2 statements apologizing, calling the remarks totally unacceptable, and saying that he had reacted out of shock. He continued, quote, having looked at the footage, I can see how inappropriate my reaction to his totally unacceptable remarks appears to be, and want to be clear that I was in no way amused by the comments. Now, there's a couple more things I want to show you. Very important. First of all, Ava has done this herself. Here are 3 screenshots of her on Twitter telling men she's not going to shag them. So literally the same thing that Lawrence Fox has said on this program, okay? Just literally the same thing. So obviously
these are all from before that happened.
Yeah, this is from before this happened. Yes, this was like before it happened, like years before sometimes. But doesn't matter. And then on top of that, because I think this is relevant, okay? So Mike, I learned about this story. Well, I knew about the story already, but Mike Buchanan of Justice for Boys and Men made an article about it. Mike Buchanan's one of our friends, a friend of the channel, and he wrote an article where he sort of like summarized it briefly. He says, GB News suspends Lawrence Fox over comments about journalist Ava Evans. And there was a gentleman who is an MRA, and I gotta point this out, okay, because this really upset me. There's an MRA that commented and said his comments were very stupid, unnecessary, and do nothing to advance the cause. Equally, her comments were utterly ridiculous and show you how ingrained misandry really is in our society. And I responded and I said, both sides, because that's what he's doing. He's trying to say that when what she said was wrong, but what Lawrence Fox said was just as bad. Ava was laughing at male suicide. Lawrence Fox was making fun of her for being unattractive. It's not the fucking same. And I'm not going to name this person, but this is a men's rights activist.
She was doing worse than that.
Yeah, she was doing worse than that.
She wasn't just laughing at male suicide. She was arguing in an influential setting against a government action that has been taken for women also being taken for men. So she was arguing in an influential space against equal treatment for men under the law.
Yes, but my ultimate point is not the same. But
that's way worse than just saying something rude.
Yeah,
way
I know.
Worse.
Way worse, absolutely. And this guy that he was talking to that he had to come forward and make a big old fucking apology. This is part of the problem, and there's more. So I said both sides, and this men's rights activist, I'm gonna keep repeating that. This is an MRA. These are the people that are supposedly our friends. They said, yes, Brian, because even in full context, both look like utter morons for their behavior. Don't think for a second that hitching your wagon onto Lawrence Fox's train is going to do any good for the movement. I'm not hitching my wagon to anybody, but this is his assumption. I said, she deserves those comments and more for making a mockery of male suicide, but you go ahead and keep trying to give these murderous psychopaths an olive branch. And then this guy replies to me and says, I knew you weren't the sharpest of the badgers, but Christ alive, are you not getting it? The more shit like this happens, the harder it is to defend the men's rights position, the more combative the people we need on our side are going to become. As recently as 5 years, the idea of a minister for men being discussed openly in mainstream media was unthinkable. Now when things are finally moving in the right direction, when cameras are finally being allowed in family courts, the CMs are facing calls in parliament to face a public inquiry, we have idiots like Tate and Fox coming and fucking everything up with stupid, unnecessary comments that do nothing but prove the feminist narrative about MRA's right. Is that really what you want? After the decades of hard work put in, including my people, by people like the Badgers, this is how you want to do things? Wake the fuck up. No, he needs to wake the fuck up, because these people are not working with us. They will never work with us. They are our enemies. That is the truth. The fact that she will laugh and scoff at this thing, and this guy is like, why aren't you nicer to the feminists? Fuck them! That's all I want to say about this story.
I got a whole set of points about this.
Okay.
I think I didn't know about that one part of that comment before the show. I'm gonna react to that first. Anybody who thinks that Brian is not one of the sharpest of the Badgers is an idiot. All right, we can just dismiss everything else the individual said just based on that. Like, part of the reason that I wouldn't take money to do HBR talk or anything else like that until the guys were funded in what they do is because they are the sharpest. No idea. I guess you haven't sat and had conversations with these guys of the Honey Badger Brigade. Very, very frequently blow us out of the water intellectually. Somebody to come along and say, you're not one of the sharpest of the Badgers because you disagree with me. Bull fucking shit. Like, they're on it. They know what they're talking about. They're very good at explaining it to other people. They get things across that sometimes Allison and Karen and I end up sputtering over because we can't stay smart when we're angry, right? So don't tell me that any of the guys that we work with are dumb, because they're not. It's bullshit, right? And then the reason that you're mad is because they're smarter than you. If you're mad at something that he said, that because you disagree with it. So that's the first thing, right?
Okay.
But I just had to point that out first. But let's talk about this idea of hitching your wagon. We're not hitching a wagon to anything, right? Commentators do not have to speak on our behalf in order to have a right to speak. The guy was a commentator. He said something as a commentator. He didn't say something as an MRA. He didn't say something as an effort at advancing the movement. He is a media commentator in general. Maybe he's on the left, maybe he's on the right. I don't know. I don't know anything else about him. But I do know that he's not famous for being an MRA, right? He just spoke, and he spoke in a masculine way. He made a joke, and that was a joke, right? He wasn't trying to keep women down. He wasn't trying to step on any legislation. He wasn't arguing against the women's minister or anything.
He was just venting, like this is just the way men talk to each other. Like, basically, she's trying to dictate how men talk to each other.
I can't
stand that. And this guy, this MRA, is like, oh, he shouldn't have said that. It's like, what could he possibly have said that would have made Ava say, oh, you know what? Actually, yes, we do need a minister for men. She said nothing.
Even that.
Nothing.
Even if it didn't advance the Minister for Men thing, just him having the right to an opinion.
Yes.
Him having the right to say, you know, some shitty joke. Oh, well, you know, she's an asshole. Like, that in and of itself, that is a men's issue. You have the right to not care about somebody else's feelings when you speak. And if it was the other way around, and a woman had done that in response to a man, well, he's obviously single. Well, let me tell you something. All right. The primary response, and I tweeted this out, so I'm going to read verbatim what I tweeted out in response to this. The primary response from many women, not just feminists, but women in general, when a man says something they don't like, is to imply that no one will shag him. Call him an incel. They'll call him an incel. They'll say,
Absolutely.
you know, she's not going to notice you, bro. She's not even going to read this, you know, blah, blah, blah. But a guy got canceled by women and their advocates for saying in response to a woman's bitchy public anti-male rant that just he personally, that he wouldn't shag her. That's a huge difference in rights, in free speech rights. Right. And we're not talking just government rights. We're talking just public in general. His employer had to react to him saying that he wouldn't sleep with one person. But notice that we can refer to men as incels for being MRAs or being this or being that women might not support. Even the guy that was repeating our rhetoric used that. Even the guy that was repeating our rhetoric said, I'm not some incel MRA, I'm just a regular guy. Like, that is a men's issue. You have the right to talk. You have the right to have thoughts and express them to the public in your own interest and in your own defense. You have the right to make jokes, and you have the right to find a woman unattractive. Those are very basic issues. That's your personal autonomy. And it shouldn't tear down your career. It shouldn't get you canceled. It shouldn't make you persona non gratis. It shouldn't make you somebody that everybody has to distance themselves from because you made a joke. Right? And that is probably the most fundamental issue with saying that. My both sides. No. A man got canceled because he talked.
Yep.
That's not my both sides, right? A woman can go on a bitchy, public, anti-male rant in opposition to equal treatment under the law, and people will defend her against a joke. That is a major men's issue. And it's because, again, compassion for men is offensive.
Yeah.
The bottom line, a compassion for men is offensive. That's probably the biggest underlying issue we have besides the accountability gap. It's that compassion gap.
And I get that the question people are asking here if Lawrence Fox is getting sacked from GB News, why is Ava Evans still allowed to appear on the BBC? Well, because GB News has standards the BBC does not. It only has double standards. The reason Ava Evans finds any work at all is because she stays within that axiom of the pervading double standard under which all other networks and all other stations operate. Namely, you can say anything you like about men as long as it's bad, and you can say anything you like about women as long as it's good. You can say, I would never shag that man. I don't like the look of that man. I don't like the genetic heritage of that man. You could go ahead and say men should kill themselves, and you'll still have a job with the BBC, because that is a bad thing about men. So it's fair game. This is the rule. Everyone knows the rule. And Ava Evans has never broken that rule on the platforms on which she appears. On GB News, on the other hand, they have rules about decorum, I think is the right word. I don't know how written or unwritten these rules may be, but I would think someone in the chain of command somewhere would indeed draw the line at I wouldn't shag her. It's not news to say such a thing as I wouldn't shag her. Even as an opinion piece, it's not a worthwhile opinion. it wasn't even a sincere opinion. It was a rather childish piece of snidery. And I suppose they have rules about that sort of thing at GB News. It sucks that Lawrence Fox was fired over it. It seems like the kind of thing you could address with some kind of official warning, as is customary. Like, you can pull yourself together now, Fox. There's no need to resort to such crassness, stiff upper lip, and all that. But maybe it was his third warning, and it's a 3 strikes and you're out sort of system. I don't know. I don't watch GB News. It's still TV at the end of the day, and I don't watch TV. And yes, it sucks that that Ava Evans still has a job, despite her expressed indifference to the problem of male suicide. It would be nice if someone at the BBC could pull her aside afterwards and go, you know, some of our viewers might find your stance a little bit controversial, but it's not going to happen at the BBC, ever. By all means, complain that GB News' standards are too high. By all means, complain that the BBC's double standards are too low, that they're straight out of 1984. But try and make an appeal to consistency across these entities, and you're engaging in a fool's folly, gentlemen. It's the perfect concrete distillation of what we mean when we tell you that you will not get through to hypocrites by pointing out their hypocrisy. After all, it's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy. It's a caste system. And a pretty simple caste system. Women are at the top, men are at the bottom. Everything else is a footnote. Mm-hmm. And the shitehawks at the BBC will do nothing but adhere to this hierarchy until their dying breath. You can't expect them to live by the rules they set for everyone else. They never will. They won't even compromise. And you shouldn't compromise in their direction either. So yeah, GB News probably shouldn't have suspended Lawrence Fox, but by the standards of your enemies, he's done nothing wrong. By all means, have higher standards than your enemies. It's not difficult, given that they have no standards. So don't raise your own standards too high. We don't have the advantage they have. We don't have an inexhaustible supply of NPCs to click themselves into place at a moment's notice. We need people who can think for themselves. And yeah, maybe thinking for yourself means saying something pointlessly edgy on again, for its own sake. That seems to be all that Lawrence Fox actually did. So, yeah, fucking grow a pair, GB News. Simping for women scorned is not a good business model unless you are OnlyFans. And you are not OnlyFans, GB News. That is your crime, and it is your repentance from that crime that is not your crime.
Okay, so I guess I wanted to read the Super Chows, but I wanted to ask, I don't know if anyone knows, but apparently Father Calvin Robinson, pictured here with Lawrence Fox, was also suspended from GB News. I don't know if it's related to this. It seems that this picture was taken today. They went out. I'm friends with Calvin Robinson on Facebook, and he shared a photo of himself having some British food, so I don't know what it is, with Lawrence Fox. And I don't know why Calvin Robinson was also suspended. So if anybody knows, let us know in the chat, or send a super chat or something to inform us. Maybe it's because he stood up for Lawrence Fox. I don't know. But anyway, so I gotta read some super chats, super chows, and then I guess we will wrap it up. So Richard BR gives us $5, and I guess I'll give him the John Cena again here.
And his name is John Cena!
and says, I have heard that in those days that the glands being exposed or uncovered has the appearance of being sexually aroused. Therefore, it might not be the best optic when engaged in nude athletics competitions. Sorry for the delay. Thank you for that. I have a few more to get through, so I got another one from Anonymous for $5. Thank you. And they say there is no such thing as a good circumcision. Nobody here said there was, but just saying in case you're trying to suggest that. They're all botched. It's straight up mutilation. I've heard doctors brag about how good they are at mutilating baby boys. We treat foreskin like it's a birth defect. Sometimes you have to browbeat even if you take a gentle approach, they'll still get offended. Jews have prevented over 10 countries from banning male genital mutilation. Good luck convincing me that they don't have their claws in every government. USS Liberty, dancing Israelis, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's Israel connection, locking Kanye West out of his bank accounts because of anti-Semitism. The ADL was founded to clear the name of Jewish necrophile, pedophile, rapists.
See, that's one thing I will. One of my, actually, it was my post where I said that women who advocate circumcision as a means of making guys more sexually attractive to women, being that they are sexual predators. I had someone come on underneath there making comments that I was being anti-Semitic. Well, my post didn't say anything about Jews, right? And it didn't say anything about Jewish intactivism or Jewish circumcision promotion or anything. It was specific to women and aesthetics. And we ended up on this long conversation, and I kept saying over and over again, this is not about you. You are taking as an attack on Judaism something that has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism. So there is a phenomenon, there is a pattern of, if you talk about Gentiles not circumcising and Gentiles not promoting circumcision for aesthetics or other reasons that are not valid reasons to circumcise, Jews will come in and attack you on that basis, right? They'll come in and attack your arguments as anti-Semitic, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism and absolutely nothing to do with Jewish circumcision for religious purposes. You're not discussing that. That creates, in my opinion, an inroad for criticizing Jewish circumcision for religious purposes. If it is such a sensitive issue for them that they have to attack discussions that are not related, they're not related to religion and they're not related to obedience, then obviously it can't be tolerated, right? And if they want it to be tolerated, then they're going to have to back off of every other aspect of the discussion. It can be perfectly acceptable if it's tolerated. Not perfectly acceptable for them to do it, but it should be perfectly acceptable for them if the only reason in the world that anybody ever circumcises is because they are Jewish and they're doing it for obedience. That shouldn't upset Jews, because that's their thing, right? That's their issue, that's their religion, that's their decision that they're making. It shouldn't upset them if everybody else isn't doing it for other reasons.
All right, well, thank you for the super chow there. And I got another one from another anonymous person. It might be the same one, I'm not sure. And they said for $5, the word circumcision is a euphemism for male genital mutilation. I've heard people that don't identify as feminists say that calling it MGM is appropriation and minimizes FGM. How the fuck they come to that conclusion is beyond me. MGM is blade rape. Well, I will say this, most people, whether they call themselves feminists or not, have feminist beliefs. So it's kind of pointless to say they don't identify as feminists, because they probably believe feminist shit. And if they do, then they are feminists. It doesn't matter.
I can tell you how they come to that
like
conclusion.
The Republicans of today
quick.
are basically second-wave feminists. So
yeah. Real quick, I can tell you how they come to that conclusion. I will tell you I don't agree with it. I think it's bullshit. But they come to that conclusion because they view compassion as a limited resource. And if you have compassion for men and boys, you must be lacking compassion for women and girls. So women and girls have to be suffering more, and you have to care more about female issues, or you don't care about them at all. That's how they come to that conclusion. Anytime, if you look at things through that filter, you understand their arguments, even though they're wrong and even though their filter is stupid.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I got another super chow from Richard Bier, $5.
His name is John C.
And he says, Lawrence's comment was disrespectful to incels. All I'll say is this: I don't think Lawrence Fox really understands incels. I think he was just using it as a slur because that's how it's used in common parlance. I wouldn't get bent out of shape over that. I think that, you know, if he looked into it more, then he would probably learn more. But I think he's just using it because it's an appropriate slur in his mind. So I wouldn't get too bent out of shape over that. But that's just me. And then we got one last one from an anonymous person for $5. And they say, who's the celebrity that mocked male suicide and years later her son took his own life? I think she was British. Goodfella made a video about it, but I can't find it. Oh, I don't know. Does anyone remember that? Oh, somebody in the comments said that Calvin Robinson got suspended because he stood up for the guy that was interviewing Fox. He defended him. So it wasn't even, I mean, I guess in principle he was also supporting Fox, but it was the gentleman that he was talking to in the Jeff whatever, no, yeah, this guy, right? No, not this guy. This gentleman right here. He stood up for him and he was suspended for that. So you don't even have to be the guy that's making the offensive thing. You can be the guy that defended a guy that reacted to the guy that said the offensive thing. Jeez. When it comes to women. So, okay.
And it really wasn't all that offensive. Like, when you think about it, you know, somebody's saying that somebody else isn't going to sleep with you. So what? So what if they say that? Does it have any power to make it true? Does it matter if they said it?
Isn't that basically what got Carl in trouble? Sargon? He was like,
yeah. Oh, no. He didn't.
Well, he said, I wouldn't
It was
even
the I wouldn't
rape
even
you.
rape you meme.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. Like, you know, I wouldn't even rape you. It's the same. I think it's the same thing. Pushes the same buttons.
Well, the big difference there is he's I don't like equating and even remotely equating sex with rape because they're not the same thing. The I wouldn't even rape you thing, the part of the reason that feminists were so upset about that was because it is a means of pointing out how stupid their argument that all men are rapists and everything is, and most men belittle rape as a behavior that they would never deign to engage in to begin with. That's the even in there. I wouldn't even rape you. Like that's saying both she and rape are beneath him, and feminists don't like acknowledging that that's true of men, that rape is beneath them. So they were punishing him not just for mentioning sex, but for challenging a narrative. Mm-hmm. Whereas this was completely, meaningless. It was just a joke. It was not even in a political context. It didn't challenge a narrative. It just was a joke. And it's not that Carl deserved to be canceled for challenging a narrative. It's that feminists were madder because he was bucking their authority over social ideas stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's and then that's different. This is even, I think their anger on this is even more inappropriate. You expect people to get mad at you for challenging their political ideas. But for just a stupid fucking joke, no, you don't,
Yep. Okay, so I got a super chat. I did the super chows. Thank you for that. Thank you guys so much for the comments. It's always good to see people's views on things. Albernated Retro gives us $2 Canadian and says it's a form of aggravated sexual assault. And I think he's referring to circumcision. Yeah. So thank you for that.
It's torture.
Yeah,
it is torture. It is physical torture.
Yeah. So, I did have one more thing, but I feel like the after show is like it's gonna go long, and I want to like hang out with Lindsay a little bit. But maybe we can watch this briefly.
What is that?
You're gonna love this. Okay, so this is the last thing. This is a short video from UN Women, and it's about how women are uniquely impacted in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
You mean the women that were allowed to leave the country?
Women are mostly affected by this war, apparently.
Wait, the women that were allowed to leave the country, the women that didn't get drafted, the women that were given resources and transportation to get out, they're the most affected?
Yeah. So I'm going to play a little bit of this, and then we'll play the rest of it in the patron show, okay? So I'll play like the first 30 seconds, so you guys get a taste of the United Nations perspective on this unfortunate situation in Ukraine/Russia. So
we see with every passing day the damage done to the lives, hopes, and futures of Ukrainian women and girls.
All these choices you have to make in a minute are enormous. One day you live a normal life, you have the plans for yourself and for your children, and the next day your life is completely disrupted.
All right, I'm going to pause it there, only playing 30 seconds. It does say the war in Ukraine has led millions of people to flee the country. Notice they say people.
That means women and children, because men were not allowed to get out.
Yeah, men of fighting age were not allowed to leave. So we're going to look at the rest of this, give our thoughts on it, and then maybe we'll then go and talk about this.
Just one thing.
Oh, yeah,
when you say fighting age, a lot of people think that only means men in their 20s.
No. It's like up to 60 or something like that.
Yeah,
it starts
that is
too.
Teenagers
on
up to retirees. Yep. If you could stand on both of your legs and hold a gun in your hands, they would not let you leave. You could be on disability and they would not let you leave if you were a man.
Yep.
Just so people understand, when we say men of fighting age, we're not talking about a small person. We're talking about almost all of the men.
Yeah, but women are most effective, Anna. I don't know if you know, but
we mean disposable males. Which is supremely ironic that we would describe fighting age males as disposable.
Yeah.
But that is how it works, folks.
Yeah.
Those are the people of whom we dispose.
And I want to point something else out, too, because we did a story a while back on, I believe it was in Mexico. Some communities in Mexico were so desperate because of the cartel violence that they were putting guns in the hands of 6-year-old boys. And this was gendered. The girls were not fighting, but they were arming their children. They were arming 6-year-old boys. And so the nature of the conflict determines how young fighting age gets.
Yeah.
Like, boys young enough to believe a fat man in a red suit could stuff himself down their chimney at night and put presents under their Christmas tree, and then go back up out the chimney and fly away in a vehicle propelled by flying reindeer. We're being given guns to defend, right? Being guns to defend, given guns to defend their communities against cartel violence. So yeah. When we say military age, and when we hear military age, a lot of times people don't think about what that means. It means having a penis and having the capacity to pick up a firearm and shoot at somebody. That's all it means.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to look at the rest of this video in the after show, so if you guys want to join us, go to feedthebadger.com, set up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, and you'll be able to consume the additional content, or even like be in the chat, or even be in the live stream with us, like while we're actually discussing things. You can like throw your 2 cents in. But I'm gonna wrap it up there because like this has gone a little like bit of a longer sausage for only 3 stories. But you know, that's just kind of what happens sometimes. So If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and also check out the gaming channel at Honey Badger Arcade. Been doing spooky games this month. I'm trying to get Lindsay to do some Resident Evil with me, but also I've been playing, or I just started playing Alien Isolation, which is pretty spoopy so far. So, you know, check it out on YouTube, Twitch, and I think Rumble as well, although like that's still there's a bit of a delay on that one. So and please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.